I redesigned dragons for my fantasy world building project. First thing to get out of the way, they're called dragons, not wyverns, because it's my world and I can call them whatever I want. My idea was to create a cool looking dragon that makes sense, could theoretically fly, and is adapted to the Cloudrunner world. To quickly explain the world I created, I call it low fantasy, high altitude. So you can walk on clouds, people live on really steep mountains, and there's a layer of toxic gas that people don't go below. Cloudrunners, well, they run on clouds, and they work as messengers, merchants, and of course, pirates and assassins. Humans don't go past the toxic layer of gas at the bottom of the world, but there are a few things they do, like dragons. I always knew I wanted dragons in my world because, well, dragons. But I also wanted them to make sense. Often dragons look too heavy to be able to fly. As a base for the design, I used the Quetzalcoatlus. It's a dinosaur that, crazy as it seems, actually flew and just has some really weird proportions that I wanted to use for my design. A lot of times real life is even crazier in design than what we can make in fantasy worlds. That was really my only starting point, and from there I just wanted to get as many cool visual images as I could to try to pick out the cool design features that I thought might be useful for building this creature. Of course, I wanted to make sure they still felt like dragons, which means spikes, horns, and claws, as well as big wings. I wanted to make sure they felt like a typical dragon in a lot of senses, but looked quite distinct and made a kind of different sense. Here I'm grabbing all my favorite elements to have on the left side of my screen to use as a reference throughout the sketching phase. At this point, I'm sketching very loosely, and I'm just trying to get the overall proportions and feel of the dragon. I'm not really happy with it at this point, and I'm just kind of working through it, doing a few variations, and playing around with all the ideas that I have in my reference folder on the left. I took the neck structure and the head and the wings pretty much exactly the way Quetzalcoatlus is built. I didn't want to stray from that too much because that main structure really worked and it actually makes sense, so transferring the dragon over to that is sort of the main first step I was trying to do here. Here I'm sketching out a couple different angles to get a sense of the shape of its body and it's how its weight would fall. Here it's standing up, and just to get a sense of the neck and head size. I really didn't want to lose the awesome dragon head, which is kind of my favorite part of it. So I wanted to make sure they felt very dragon-y and not so much bird-like like the Quetzalcoatlus. I actually started to sketch out a new angle of the whole thing, trying to get a more of an illustration look to it, but kind of abandoned that pretty quickly because I really hadn't refined the design all that well yet, and I wanted to wait to do a full illustration until I fleshed it out quite a bit more. I'll definitely be doing a really detailed illustration in the future. Back to reworking the design, I'm going over my initial sketch and just refining things a little bit more. Start fleshing out the actual detailed shapes of the head, the horns. I got this little weird backward spike on the horn, but I didn't really like that. I ended up coming up with a much better idea that I thought would work as the horn to extend farther on the neck and kind of protect it from attacks from above from other dragons. But I like a lot of what I did with the head and neck here. Mostly those shapes I kept until the final. The body here is a little bit too small, but I got most of the cleaning up done in this phase here. These dragons make their nests in the high peaks of this world where humans live. Dragons claim their own mountains and humans tend to avoid them. They do all their hunting below the surface of the toxic gas layer, which is colored a pale yellow-green. Humans have very little idea what is below, but their best guess is a lush green jungle because of the dragon's dark green coloration on their backs. The dragons are colored similar to great white sharks, camouflaged from above being dark green and from below being the same yellow-green as the toxic gas layer. They're sometimes spotted returning from below with giant insects in their mouth. When humans touch the toxic gas layer, they get chemical burns quite instantly, but the dragons seem to be quite resistant to it, being able to go above and below it. Even still though, they go quite fast through the layer. Here I elongated the snout a little bit, added extra fingers and webs to both the wings and the back feet. I adjusted the muscles to be a bit stronger and thicker, and just working on some final details for the shape. I also extended out the horns. The back, the tail I extended so it would be wider to give a bit more weight, and also to be able to kind of flatten out to rest on the clouds. For the tail, I designed it to be like an arrow fletching to give it a bit more stability while flying, but it can flatten out the tail at higher speed if it's going to swing at something. But generally it would have it open while flying just for that added stability. Here I'm showing some of the coloring that I was talking about earlier. Overall, I'm really happy with this design. I'm definitely open to making changes to it in the future, and I also definitely want to do some bigger, more detailed illustrations with it in action. But if you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more of this, I would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. It means a lot to me, and I want to be able to keep creating more of these kind of videos and get further into this world. Let me know what you want to see more of, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.